Before we begin, we are certainly slipping against our planned agenda. And is there anyone here who has the authority to tell me how long we have and how long we should go? Okay. One of the things about a panel is you can just kind of go into yourself. So we will begin. The theme that we're going to discuss today is what must Asia know in order to serve and to compete on a worldwide basis. We're going to use this process. We're going to have each of the people on the panel make an opening remark, a couple of minutes of personal introduction, and then if they would address this particular theme, what must Asia know in order to serve and compete on a worldwide scale. Then, depending on our time, we will have some interaction. We'll invite different members of the panel to make comments on others' presentations. So let's begin on my left. Nishi-san, my friend, would you begin for us? If you'll use the microphone, you can either take it out of the... Probably best to take it out.
Selamat petang. Hello, good afternoon. My name is Yasan Nishi from Tokyo, Japan. My primary job is a university professor, and my secondary job is the consultancy service, providing consultancy service on software testing. And today's my role is the cat facing the lions, or on behalf of Asian countries. Thank you.
Klaus, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself and make a comment on our theme?
Yeah, I'm Klaus Pohl from PALUNO. PALUNO is a software engineering research institute at the University of Duisburg-Essen, where I'm director of. The institute had about 150 to 200 staff research members. My area is requirements engineering, software services and testing. And I guess I'm here to expand the scope of testing a little bit towards the requirements dimension. So not only testing what a tester wants, but testing against requirement that the product really fulfills its purpose. And we can go in detail, if you like, later on.
Thank you.
One observation that I sort of have over the last 2 days is that I run a conference as well in the US and Europe, and it's all about agile testing and different working, and talking about independent teams is no-go anymore. And it changes the world, it changes how you work, it changes the people's behavior, it changes also the requirements for people. However, here in Malaysia and Asia in general, what I'm trying to see is we still do waterfall. Whether it's good or bad, it's something we should discuss, but that's something which struck me so far.
John?
John Hager. I think I've been testing for 32, 34 years, so I really don't know too much about it. But I think I'd like to agree with at least one panelist. I think software testing is more than just software, it's more than just testing. In my 30 plus years, I've done requirements, I've done systems engineering, I've done software engineering, programming, testing, a little bit of hardware, and a lot of the soft sciences. And so I think one thing we may talk about and hit is, and we've heard a little bit already, is the notion of even things like psychology, sociology, and believe it or not, music and arts as applied to software testing.
Thanks, John. My name's Lee Copeland. I'm with Software Quality Engineering in the U.S. My role there is to be the program chair for all of our conferences. We run 7 conferences a year now. Star East, Star West, and the new Star Canada conference. We run 2 conferences on called Better Software and 2 on Agile development. And so my role is to choose topics and choose speakers, and these days that's a full-time job. Again, I appreciate being invited here. I'd like to start with some comments based on what Eric just said. Agile is taking over the world. And if you, as an individual, you as an organization, you as a country, want to provide testing services to the world, you need to understand the impact that Agile is having and is going to have. I just have a quick list of those. Key ideas in Agile are, first of all, self-directed and integrated work teams. Having developers on one team and testers on another is a thing of the past in most Agile projects. And if you want to provide testing services, you're going to have to deal with that issue. Development is now being done in small batches. In some organizations, every 2 weeks, every 3 weeks, every 4 weeks. In other organizations, every day or every hour, new software is developed into production. If you want to be a part of the testing for that, then you're going to have to change your processes, your tools, your culture, your attitude in order to deal with that kind of testing. The days of multiple weeks of planning and then analysis and design and execution are long gone. We're doing everything just in time, just in time planning, just in time analysis and design and testing. You're going to have to be ready for that. Exploratory testing is becoming far more important than it ever used to be. You need to find a balance between that and scripted testing in your work. Those are just some of the things that I think you need to know about in order to really serve and to compete on a worldwide basis. I'd like to ask other people on the panel now if they would like to add other items that they think you should know about.
So, building on what I started with, and I agree, Agile has been the hot buzz topic for about 11 years. I think also every Agile team I've ever seen and reviewed does things slightly differently. I'm not sure there's one Agile way. So the takeaway for people looking to provide testing services, I think is you need to be flexible. Don't expect Agile to be one way. Don't expect software testing to be one way. Look for the opportunities as they come along, but don't expect each opportunity to be the same as the last opportunity. And that really requires a diversity of skills. It isn't enough just to be a good software tester anymore. That's one of the things Agile teams value, is a lot of diversity. So you may need to develop domain expertise, you may need to develop programming skills, skills with tools, soft skills like we just heard from the last speaker to be successful. That's on the individual level. I think there's also a similar set of things that have to happen for companies that could support you in getting test jobs across the world.
Thanks. Eric?
Yeah, I agree to this. It's a panel discussion, sorry, but I think, yes, as a tester, it's not enough anymore to know just about testing. I think that changes. You're part of a team, and you're expected to do roles or jobs or tasks that are not primarily testing. That requires, yes, the tester needs some scripting skills, some coding skills, requirement skills. It also requires something which is, I think, is also new for many people. We expect developers to test. But that means we've got to teach them how to test. And that means a tester in an agile team quite often becomes a coach for developers on testing. And I don't think every tester today has coaching skills. So another, I think, challenge for the future.
Thanks. Klaus?
I'm a little bit two-minded about this whole stuff, what we were discussing. When I think about a car, I can't imagine you develop a car in an agile way. Not today, maybe in 10 years. So I think, and it heavily depends on the product, I personally think. I can also not imagine that you develop a new version of Amazon internet shop within a 5-year project with well-defined tests and everything. To my knowledge, Amazon puts out a new product version every 30 seconds in the world. Every 30 seconds, a tested new version is going online. So I guess we have to distinguish a little bit between the types of application, and then we can discuss maybe several types of application and come to some conclusions for them. But in general, saying we have to go agile, I think, at least for the car and even more so for the avionic industry, is not really the right way to go. I totally agree for new types of application, like web application and things like that.
I think the most important thing of Agile is value. Value, I think value is achieved by doing valuable works and reducing valueless works. But the present Agile is made in America, and I think it's far too American way. So value, we got it. And I think we have get to technique to identify valueless work, and in software development and software testing, to identify and to reduce valueless works. It's easy in manufacturing, in automotive manufacturing and so on, but it's more difficult in software development way because the automotive cars are made by machines, but software is made by us human beings. It's a problem of cognitive science.
Thank you. Let me add a couple of ideas here. We have a joke in the United States. I don't know if it's going to go over here, but I'll give it a try. If you can speak 3 languages, you're trilingual. If you can speak 2 languages, you're bilingual. If you can speak 1 language, you're American. Many of you have the advantage over me in that you speak multiple languages. And if you want to be on the world stage as a tester, you need to cultivate your knowledge of multiple languages so that you can communicate well with others. As we see this agile movement emerge and we see developers and testers needing to work together, you're going to need to be able to communicate with them in their language. Especially if you're an outsourced vendor, you're going to have to communicate in their language. They won't come to you with yours. So continue your education in various languages. It will only be of benefit to you. One of the things that makes, in my mind, a true professional is a person who makes commitments and then keeps those commitments. I'm sensitive to this because as program chair for these large conferences, I'm seeing more and more speakers who commit to come and speak, and then at the last minute call me or email me with some excuse about why they can't come. And to me, they're exhibiting a lack of professionalism. You need to learn to make and keep commitments. You need to learn to say yes when you mean yes and no when you mean no. And you need to say, I understand when you understand, and say, I don't understand when you don't understand. These are basic building blocks of professionalism. And again, I think if you want to compete in the world, you need to be professional in your work. Other comments, please? Yeah.
So you used a word that I want to actually pick at a little bit, and it was kind of part of the called mission statement here, which I actually took the more expanded sentence that Lee gave me and dissected it and maybe rewrote it a little bit. And the word compete, I think, in the changing game of the economy, maybe needs to mean different things, because it kind of has a negative connotation many times in terms of kind of an us versus them in some sort of maybe a soccer game, which has its place also. But I think to be successful, and that's part of how I read the statement here, what must Asia, and I would rewrite that to be, and the world, need to work on, not know. Because I'm always working on something. I don't know everything. I'm always working on it. In order to live long and prosper. I don't know if there's any Star Trek folks out there, but to me, I don't want to compete. I want the community. I want all the countries to prosper, all the companies to prosper as a community. So the word compete sometimes rubs me slightly the wrong way, because I'd rather just see us all prosper by learning some of the things we were talking about during this meeting on how to do testing better, and maybe even certifications and test maturity models and standards and things like that. To me, they're all part of hopefully prospering, because that's what I think the world wants to do, is to prosper.
Yeah, thank you. I understand your concern. When I wrote the word compete, what I was thinking I've told her not to call me here. Let's see, where was it? Oh, yes.
I lost my voice for those who said congratulations.
She's sitting there.
Yeah, I know.
Where was I? Oh, yes. When I wrote the word compete, what I was thinking of was if Malaysia wants to join as leaders, join the world community as testers, they're going to be competing with other nations, bigger nations, including China and India. And so that was my use of the word compete there. The note that I was handed was not a message from my secret lover. It was, in fact, a note that we're supposed to continue until 4:45. So we have a half an hour here, assuming we can find things to say in that time. Klaus, anything you'd like to add about to our discussion?
I like to be a little bit more provocative, so let's see how this works. Yeah, I heard this morning that one goal is to do offshore testing and to develop Malaysia further in the market of offshore testing. Listening to your comments, I would say in a few years there is no offshore testing anymore. There's no outsourcing of testing anymore. What do you think about that?
I have somewhat of an answer to that. I've been involved in one or two groups that tried, and one that sort of succeeded. And I wouldn't use the word offshoring. What they were trying to do in an agile sense in a distributed team was have 24 hours a day of production and development. And there was a group in the United States kind of defining what was done, another group in India doing some code, and another group somewhere in Europe doing testing. all about 8 or 9 hour shifts with some of it overlapping. I said I saw one of those fail miserably, I saw another one kind of succeed. So I think that might be an approach. It's not so much offshoring as a global community working on things. That's very difficult to do, I suspect, but an interesting strategy to get things done quicker.
Yeah, regarding the future of outsourcing, of offshoring, there's a difference, especially related to, let's say, Asia. I see at least two threats. I mean, we talked about Agile already, and Klaus said, well, it's probably only for Microsoft or some applications. I see also big projects, and so big projects working on safety critical systems moving to Agile. And Agile and outsourcing do not match that way. So that's one thing. The other thing which I'm seeing, and I'm looking at it from a European perspective much more, is that Malaysia, India, China are pretty far out. Communication is difficult, there's time difference, there is cultural differences. So what we're seeing very largely is that Eastern European countries are playing a major role today in the outsourcing. So talking about competing, we should be talking also about how does Malaysia, India, Asia in general compete with Eastern European countries. Because if I run a company in the Netherlands and I outsource, I can fly to Poland very, very quickly. And also, if you look at salaries in Poland, it's 1 to 4. So there's a lot of developers or people working in Poland. And this is your, I think, challenge as well.
We are living in 2013, and we are facing the 2015 is the year of ASEAN integration. So for our Asian countries, offshoring is a little bit out of date concept, because there will be a big market in China and East Russian and Vietnam, Indonesia, Korea, Thailand, and Malaysia, and so on. So, for example, China is customer of Chinese banking, Chinese automotive company, Chinese train companies, and so on. And prime contractor, prime system integrator, maybe Malaysian company, and you order a lot of development work to America or Europe countries, because Malaysia is so near to Asian countries, nearer than Europe or America. So I think you have to graduate the offshoring concept. You can be the prime contractor. So Malaysia has to prepare to be prime contractor.
Another thing perhaps we should talk about when we talk about offshoring, outsourcing, and also the movement of Agile is what can be outsourced and what could be added value or when are you can differentiate. And one of the things which I think coming up as well is that maybe performance testing or security testing, so very technical issues, would be a wake-up call. If you become the country or the countries, region, where this is where they actually understand security testing, this is where they actually understand performance testing or reliability testing. That could be a way forward to still have outsourcing going on, but it needs special skills.
So let me summarize what I've heard. Oh, please.
Can I add the last one?
Of course.
I think the last point, in my point of view, is a very important one. In the future, it will not be based on money. It will be based on skills. So skill development, I think is the crucial thing, and not only in testing, but in whole system development. Due to HR, due to the cross-section of teams, and also due to the round-the-clock time shifts of teams, not of separation between requirements architect, implementer, and tester. So skill, I think, is the issue, not only in testing.
I'd like to add to that even. I would put skills and the right kinds of environments and tools to support that, which implies another set of skills to run and use those environments. An environment then including, again, something Malaysia and the other countries can work on, a seamless ability to communicate around the world across time zones and things like that. Which, by the way, we're all faced with those challenges. None of us know exactly how to do those things. These things are all evolving, I think, as we speak. But somebody's going to figure these things out, I do believe.
So now let me try and summarize the three things that I've heard here, the three different ideas. First, many organizations would like to have round-the-clock development. And one way to do that is to have round-the-world development. And you could be a part of that. Is that what you were saying? The second thing was that there are certain parts of the testing world process that can fairly easily be segmented. Things like security testing, privacy testing, performance testing. And you could be the leader in that area. And then the third idea was currently, maybe most software is built in North America and North America and Europe. And some of that testing then is being outsourced to Asia, but that need not be the model of the future. Asia can be a leader in software development also. And you could be a part of the testing in that software development. So it strikes me that there's a bright future there. I would then have to ask, who are the leaders in Malaysia? Who are the thought leaders? Who are bringing forth new ideas, new processes, new concepts, new tools? As I visit, I'll just be straight honest here. As I visit India, I see a nation in terms of IT who are great followers. And I mean that in the best sense. They have adopted ideas. They can execute processes. They are intelligent people. But I see very few leaders. I see very few people who are ready to take software development, software testing there to the next level. They're excellent followers. Give them a process and they can follow. I hope I'm not being offensive to anyone here. But I only have met a couple of people in a huge nation who are really leading out and talking about new ways of testing, new and innovative ideas. That's what you need to do. And so that would be the challenge that I would leave with you. It's important that we understand the old ways. It's important that we understand current processes. But as I said in my talk yesterday, the successes of the past can blind us. They can prevent us from having successes in the future. And you need, as individuals and organizations, to step out and be innovative, try new things.
In many fields, they work on process and rely on process, and certainly in parts of industry, factories and things like that rely on process. I think process is necessary to a point, a lot of other professions talk about practice. Medical doctors talking about practice. Why? Because it takes so long, not only to just understand the basic concepts that you get in school and certifications, but then to continue the practice to get to the point where you understand enough to innovate. As I said, myself and the majority of people here on the panel have been practicing, I think, for, if I add up real quickly, maybe over 200 years. I'm not sure about Nishi, but yeah. But the practice allows the innovation to come. So you've got to spend a lot of time practicing to get smart enough to do the innovation. I agree. Innovation is an important thing to lead on. Very few people get there. I'm not sure I'm there.
Appreciate that, John. Good thoughts.
Yeah, just to add on to what Lee was saying, I think what needs to change, when we're talking about wake-up calls, is that, and this is a European, also American perspective, is we see Asia still as a resource. And if you want to survive in the next 10 years and become a center of excellence, which I mentioned this morning, or at least play in the Champions League, be good at some things, then it needs to be skills. Not about resources only. But it does mean also leadership. It does mean that we have to start looking at Malaysia and Asia differently. That will not happen, that change, from Europe or the US. That's your change you've got to make. You have to become leaders of innovation. It's not about resources anymore, about skill anymore. I think this is, and then if that happens, it's not about agile or outsourcing anymore. That's a change perspective. I think that's the main change that could happen for the future.
Just to add on this, I heard a lot of times India and things like that. I would have preferred to have much more Korea, LG and Samsung, for example. That's the way to go. And that's not a resource anymore. That's a very leadership in a certain market. And you need testing skills, you need software skills, but you also need systems engineering skills for that. I think the time just for cheap workload and cheap to save cost to do this outside the high developed countries, I think this time is soon gone. And it's really about developing unique and world-leading products, also in the internet area.
Good, thank you. Now, we've been asked to take questions from you, our audience. And we have some microphones here that are placed around the room. And we welcome you to come up to a mic to ask a question. You can ask a question either to the panel as a whole. We'll attempt to answer it, or you can ask an individual person. I'm assuming the microphones are turned on and ready to go. So do we have try not to all rush to the microphones at once. We don't want anyone being hurt.
Be brave.
Hello. Can I have one question?
Talk louder.
I'm sorry, we can't hear you.
Can you hear me?
Barely. Can we turn the gain up on the mic, please?
Hello?
No, that's better.
So, I think software testing is quite new, especially in Malaysia. So, how to train a good software tester? What is the, let's say, for example, the basic knowledge a student need to acquire in order to become a good software tester? That's my question to all panelists.
Let me see if I can restate your question. It's, what do you think makes good training for a software tester?
Yes. For example, is it
Training, education?
Is it with IT knowledge or programming knowledge is sufficient to become a good software tester? Because some applications, for example, involve embedded programming, without understanding electronic engineering, maybe they cannot come up with a good test method.
All right, good, excellent question. Thank you. Who'd like to start?
I guess I'll start. In the notion of building on the practice, I think you start your education even at high school, continue into college. When I used to be a hiring manager, all I thought college meant is that I could train you. Once you get past those things, then you can start thinking about skills in areas like, say, certification kind of thing, like ISTQB, or there's many other kinds of classes and accreditations one can look at. But again, speaking as a hiring manager, and I think everybody has to keep in mind, once you have a base level, say, like some certifications, that doesn't mean that you're good at practicing testing yet, which is why I mentioned earlier, I think once you get those things and get that basic training, and most of us here do training, then you got to go out and actually practice. And I would even extend that as a challenge to everybody. You've heard a lot of good things yesterday, today, and you'll hear some more things in the next couple of days. The practice that I'm talking about, you're getting some education now. The practice I'm talking about, that's the hard part, to actually take it back to wherever you're working at and practice one of those things, actually do it. And that's the education path that I see. A little bit of training, lots of practice.
Yeah, I think I cannot agree more. It's one of the things which actually I think goes wrong a lot in the world. I've been training a lot of ISTQB, and ISTQB is basic, it's also advanced nowadays. A lot of training, you can actually go to a level, but it's still theory. Quite often what happens is people invest companies in training, get people, let's say, ISTQB certified, but that's only the beginning. And that is, again, a wake-up call. I've come across many, many organizations who spend a lot of money getting all people trained, and then they stand out to their jobs, and that is it. It only starts after training. You got to have some kind of internal mechanism to share experiences, to talk about things, to review each other's test plans, to do the practice. It's doing it also, it's learning. It's sharing knowledge, things like that.
Klaus, can you tell us a little bit about software training in your part of the world? What kind of program or process do people go through to become software testers? And then I will ask you the same question.
I think the differentiation process you made, I would agree with. There's a difference in training, so learning something, like learning to read English, and it's a whole different story to write your first English sentence or even a whole English book. It's a whole different thing, and this is why training also requires, in addition, or education requires, in addition, a lot of practice. So this is one thing I absolutely agree. The second thing, I think, at least to my observation from large companies we work with, is a similar thing happening like it happened with programming 15 years ago in some countries, maybe even only today, where in the 80s, at least in Germany, if you were able to write COBOL or C, you got a job. And whatever it was the programming about, if it was a banking application, if it was a process automation, if people know a programming language, they program a little bit, they were hired and they were put in the job. This is over. This is not happening today. Not in programming and also not in testing, at least in Germany. You require domain knowledge. The time where somebody works in each domain, maybe aerospace, maybe automotive, maybe banking application, maybe energy, maybe internet application, whatever you can think of. And he get a job because he has basic knowledge and a lot of experience in testing is, at least in Germany, almost very close to over, because especially for testing, I really think you need, except for unit testing, a lot of domain knowledge. If you do system testing, and especially system acceptance tests, you have to have a lot of domain knowledge. So in addition to the training and the work experience, I think it's a very good idea to specialize in some domains, but not in all.
Thank you.
So my answer is, listen to my lecture in my university. It's just joking. It's a last point. And my real answer is, do test anything. Actually, anything. Okay, do test anything, and you will miss bugs. So, and you have to analyze bugs you missed. Think why you missed the bugs. So, bugs you missed will be a good teacher. And the bugs, it's a good teacher, tells you your weak point of testing skills. Bugs you missed is a good teacher.
Yes, please.
An anecdote from two large companies. So when we introduced a new way of testing, one was about 10 years back, the other one 8 years back. We took the test managers in separate rooms, so 5 of them in one company, 10 in the other, in separate rooms. And we gave them a problem they had within the company, and we told them to write test cases. So we looked at the test cases. Guess how many of them were similar? How many overlap of tests? Take the 10 ones. 10 test managers, all knowledge about the domain, all very experienced people. They know the product, and we put them in separate rooms and give them a goal for a certain type of system test. Guess how many different test cases we got, or how many similar ones? Non-similar. So not none the same. Some of them similar, but none the same. Why? Because they all had different requirements in their head. So in addition to what we had, I forgot this before, I think it's also important to know how to write good requirements, so you can challenge the requirements engineer and say, look, this might be a requirement in your point of view, but this is nothing I can ever test. So I think having knowledge about requirements engineering and how to read the right requirements in a way that you can test them is equally important than test knowledge.
Okay, good. So let me see if I can recap. We've got training. We've got practice, we've got domain specialization, and okay, and I'm trying to reflection, self-reflection, asking yourself, why did I do that? How did I do that? How did I find that bug? How did I miss that? This introspection, of self-reflection. I guess I would add just a little bit here, and that is just an insatiable desire to try and figure out how things work and see if you can break them. It's just fun. Oh, and you have to have what we call a thick skin. In other words, you can't be susceptible to criticism. Because people will criticize you for basically every time you find a defect. It's like telling someone their baby is ugly, and they won't like that. So you have to be able to deal with that. Excellent question. Thank you, panel. How about another question? Let's see how much more time we have here. All right, we have 3.5 days. Sorry. Another question from our distinguished audience. We have time for one more. Something you've just been burning to ask some of us, all of us, one of us, none of us. Going through all the combinations here. Yes, I have a tester. You try all the combinations.
Okay, so how many combinations are there?
Right, one more question. Good, a brave soul, thank you.
Evening. I see a lot of companies in Malaysia are moving toward the agile methodology right now. But what I can see about my company is that there's a lot of stereotyping happening in the agile team. So they still see tester as a tester in waterfall. So how can we actually avoid this kind of situations?
Could you repeat the question? Could you speak a little more slowly for us, please?
a lot of companies in Malaysia are moving towards agile methodology. So in my company, so we see a lot of problems like stereotyping of agile testers. So how can we actually avoid this kind of problem?
Help us understand what you mean by stereotyping virtual
It
testing.
means that the developers see the tester as just a tester, so they are not supposed to do scripting or coding. And the testers see themselves as a tester only, and they are not supposed to do coding as well.
Do you mean the testers aren't supposed to do coding?
That is the current perception. So how can we actually avoid it so that testers can participate as an agile team, as an agile member?
So you as a tester want to be able to do some coding in Java and things like that?
Yeah, I think they should have more skill sets to be part of the agile team. Right?
Well, in my case, speaking personally, when I ran into programmers that thought I was just a tester, I wrote some code and got it to execute, maybe some test automation, and I really wasn't too concerned with them saying, oh, you're a tester, you can't write code. I wrote code to solve problems. That's what programmers do. That's what they like to do. They like to solve problems with code. When they see a tester starting to solve problems with code, that kind of puts a stop to the, oh, you're a tester, you don't know what you're doing in the coding world. That was my personal solution, is I wrote good code that would test their software and find bugs.
Okay, we are just running a project with a company with 400 developers in all agile sprints, 2 weeks, 1 week, most 2.5. And what we introduced there was, I think, a very good concept, which is one agile team who does the development, develops the test cases in parallel to the development. And then it handles over the code and the test cases to another agile team, and the other agile team does the test of this one, so they swap. So there are no testers, no developer anymore, there are teams, they work together, they have different skills, even a test manager in each team. And when they have written and designed the test cases, then they swap the test cases and the developed code to the other team. They do the test, they get feedback, so no problem at all, and I think it's a very good way to do so.
Other comments for this good question? I'm trying to think of something brilliant to say.
Have fun.
So, yeah, I don't know about brilliance. For those that don't know, I'll keep talking to y'all, leave here.
I'm going to stop you in about 3 minutes.
Leo, keep me in mind. I would extend it even a little bit further. Way too often, programmers just think, well, I'll write in Java, that's the only language. One of the things we see in the industry some places, and there was a talk, tutorial on yesterday, is the notion of model-based development at the system level, the software level, and even the test level. That starts abstracting away from even writing code and things like that to writing models. And so some of my answer would be to start saying, well, you guys just doing nothing but programming. That's kind of old school. Can you create models? And testers can create independent models. So you want something that's, I'll say, maybe next generation down the road. And it may not be applicable to all domains, but it's happening in some of them. Learn how to do modeling and show the developers that they may be out of a job writing Java because everybody's going to be working in models. By the way, I've heard that for 30 years. It doesn't happen, but it may happen in a few select domains.
Do you have a quick comment? No. Right. I'll give you some grandfatherly advice here. I'll give you some great-grandfatherly advice. I have 2 great-grandchildren. Don't wait for permission to show how good you are. Just do it. If something needs to be done, if code needs to be written, if a test case needs to be written, a framework needs to be created, if test data needs to be created, just go do it. Show how good you are. And it'll confound the critics pretty quickly. And you'll be a valued part of the team. I want to leave this final bit of advice with you today because we have to close. Internally, you can focus on process, but externally, don't talk process. Don't tell people, about test case counts and defect detection percentage and stuff like that. Focus on value. Talk value, show value, be valuable to your team. That's what you need to do. Everything else will move out of the way. Everything else will respect your value. And,
They'll come to you.
yeah, they'll come to you. Our time is up. I hope you've enjoyed our discussion. I hope you've gotten something valuable out of it. We thank you for your time. We thank you for your questions. It's time for us to go because others are ready to go.
Much to our very esteemed panel. Thank you for a very, very riveting session.